As early as 1928, the communists declared that the racial differences among our people constituted the weakest and most vulnerable point in our social fabric. By constantly probing and straining at this one spot, they calculated that eventually the cloth could be torn apart and that Americans could be divided, weakened, and perhaps even set against each other in open combat. We mustn't kid ourselves into thinking that the communists have placed their agitators only into the black communities. They're working both sides of the street. They want hatred, violence, and bloodshed between the races, and they don't care how they get it or whom they use, even children if necessary. That the communist blueprint calls also for white retaliation and violence in the black communities. It's a very important objective for the Communist Party. So far, they've only been able to involve a small percentage of our Negro people in this war of national liberation. The great majority want no part of it in any form. But the one sure way to change that is to have white vigilante groups striking into the Negro sections supposedly to seek revenge. Ladies and gentlemen, the plans and preparations for a communist revolution of force and violence are far advanced. The organization behind these preparations has almost unlimited financial resources, and it provides both training and leadership based upon years of experience in many other countries. Our enemies are deadly serious about their task, and it's nothing short of national suicide for us to continue to ignore their plans and their progress. The strategy of the proletarian revolution calls for the quiet conversion of our government into a communist regime, but under the banner of socialism. Well, what is socialism? All right, let's define it. According to the dictionary, socialism is a political concept based upon the principle of government ownership and control of property, the means of production, and the avenues of commerce. Under socialism, those who run the government, and the communists are confident that in America they eventually will be the ones who do so, those who run the government will know who is to get something and who has to wait, and that represents control over human beings. What has all this to do with the communist revolution in America? Well, ladies and gentlemen, it has everything to do with it, because the building of socialism is the communist revolution in America. It represents the process whereby our country can be moved gradually toward communism without the people even being aware of it. No matter what grievance we may have, real or imagined, no matter what national problems we may face, the communists seize upon these as excuses to build socialism. They have one and only one solution for all problems: more government, and then more and more until it's total government. And forgive me for saying it one more time, total government is communism. In 1943, the following directive was issued from party headquarters to all communists in the United States. It read, "When certain obstructionists become too irritating, label them after suitable build-ups as fascist or Nazi or anti-Semitic, and use the prestige of anti-fascist and tolerance organizations to discredit them. In the public mind, constantly associate those who oppose us with those names which already have a bad smell. The association will, after enough repetition, become fact in the public mind." But because they are lying, it's possible to expose them, and this is their Achilles heel. Now, by comparison, we have nothing to hide, therefore we have no reason to lie, and we wouldn't want to even if we could. Truth is a far superior weapon than deceit. It's a weapon which is denied to them, and in the end, it will be the decisive weapon that destroys them completely.
I just want to highlight a particular point made by G. Edward Griffin in regards to the communists using racial agitation as means to civil unrest. Quote, "The communist blueprint calls for white retaliation in black communities." There is a website called 4chan, and on this site are dozens of topic boards. The most notorious one is called politically incorrect, or simply Pole. Now, some may call it a white nationalist hangout, but in reality, it is a Wild West-style ideological blood sport where every conceivable fringe political camp tests their taunting prowess, their disinformation strategy, and their propagandistic mettle against the nerve and psyche of every brave lurker. Even some national governments are suspected of using the site as a PSYOP testing ground before making their final delivery for mass normie consumption. Now, thankfully, at this point in time, the general public is starting to wake up to just how corrupt and evil these self-proclaimed social justice movements are. But before then, when Black Lives Matter was at their apex of popular support and the media was managing their mostly peaceful narrative quite successfully, there was a sudden and rather suspicious deluge of Antifa meme-flagged threads popping up all over our last bastion of interwebs free speech, the aforementioned Pole. It was very odd how the radical left, seemingly the rioters themselves, were continually goading, practically begging, all the white nationalists and Trump supporters alike to take up arms and defend the nation from falling into chaos under their own self-admitted communist insurrection. Oh, and if you're one of these morons who still thinks that MAGA is a Nazi movement, then feel free to peruse the board yourself and see just how much the Hitler fanboys hate Trump, calling him a Zionist shill, literally married into Jewish wealth and connection. Anyways, back to commies strangely begging for the rope. Aside from the MAGA boys wanting desperately for Trump to either invoke the Insurrection Act or even to radically deputize all citizens for a legal vigilante response, the true Nazis simply laughed, replied, "Nope," sat idly back to watch the burning of Democrat-run cities, while occasionally posting that most famous Joker quote, "You get what you fucking deserve." And this is where every one of us is now obligated to thank a Nazi. Why, you may ask? Because they alone denied the establishment media an opportunity for yet another Kent State massacre effect. If the white nationalists, or even the Trump supporters, grabbed their guns and charged in for the boogaloo, before the general public had time to digest those red and black pills, the establishment media would have successfully blamed white nationalists for the cause of the riots. How do I know this? Because the goddamn media tried to blame Nazis even after their colossal optics failure. The fabricated Nazi hysteria in America for the last several years has caused enough damage to our liberties and social cohesion. Just think of the possible dire consequences if the media were able to splice and dice a whole lot of footage of white men gunning down black revolutionaries, in a time when most normies are willing to accept the woke belief that persons of color are always innocent victims no matter how belligerent they've initially behaved. Biden would have won in a landslide, and without the Democrats cheating. Think of the horror behind that. But, with that said, how does it feel, lefties? How does it feel that the Nazis proved themselves to be better, moralistic actors than you? Many are dead, jobless, without homes, feeling hopeless, scared out of their minds. And we're all now denied even more liberties and opportunities. And those scary, evil white supremacists caused none of it. You did!